guys. How you doing? How you doing? I know I can smile, but I was just reading some information. That was my regular face. How are you doing? How are you doing? Some music on in the background. It's super quiet.
There we go.
Yep, I just okay.
Hey. Hi,
Hey.
Asia.
Hello.
How are you?
All right.
I'm
Then I'll
fine.
get closer. There. Is that better?
Okay, is your video on? Let me see.
Oh.
What does that mean? You don't
It
know.
says waiting for get up and teach. So I had sent you. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
I
what
gotta
did you
switch.
do, Kath?
There we go.
Yes? You
There
can
we
see
go.
us? We're good?
We're good.
All right. Yay. Thanks, Asia, for setting this up because we're old.
I've only gone to them. I've never hosted one. We're not even hosting it. You're hosting it.
You're not that old. It's okay. It's all in the mind.
You're right.
Your
Kathy,
numbers,
what?
your numbers are not big enough. So.
Well,
Okay.
should I take it down?
I don't know. We'll have
It
to
does
lean.
kind of look
What
like a penis. I didn't mean it to look like a penis in the back.
It's okay. I didn't even look at it that way.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So our live is Instagram live hosted for an hour before it shuts off. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and shout out the times periodically or whatnot. So
Woohoo! Hi, Sally Houston. It's nice to see you.
thanks for joining us.
Shout
All right.
out.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and let me wait just a moment. Let me see.
You go right ahead, Asia. We're just grateful that you know what you're doing. It makes us very happy.
We'll call you Tech.
That's right.
Just going ahead and maybe just send a few invites.
Wow, how did you do that?
Okay.
It's your baby.
I gotta learn how to do
This is your thing.
it.
I think you do this.
Oh, that's very smart.
Yeah, so there's an arrow on the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, that's very smart.
You just
Yeah, you guys are wrapping up the school year?
Yep.
Are you guys
Yes,
Okay.
we are. Yes. Okay. Sure. There we go.
All right. Okay. Well, we can go ahead and get started.
Sounds
All right,
good.
All right, so we can go ahead and get started. All right, friends, my name is Asia Mapp, aka Miss Mapp with Excel Choice Education. I'm currently an elementary educator, and my business, we help students achieve their goals through learning, through academic tutoring, coaching, and consulting for parents. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Noelle Hoffmeister. I am currently at Harvest Christian Academy. I'm an instructional coach and I teach English, and in my spare time I'm curriculum coordinator.
Yeah. My name is Kathy D'Alessandro. I also am an instructional coach and I oversee math, science, technology, and have a huge passion to incorporate social emotional standards. So out of that came Get Up and Teach that Noelle and I created, where we create read-alouds and instructional support for authentic integration in the classroom.
Awesome. It's definitely needed. Awesome. I love it. I love
Thanks.
it.
Yep, fun. It's a good creative outlet for Noelle and I.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone who just joined. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's dive in. Social emotional definition and its use in classrooms. Okay, so put it out there. It's definitely a process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life success. So people with strong social emotional skills, they're better able to cope with everyday challenges, and they benefit academically, professionally, and socially. From effective problem solving to self-discipline, from impulse control to emotion management, and just more. It's just beneficial across the board. SEL provides, it's a foundation for positive long-term effects on kids, adults, and communities. There's just some articles and things I had came across. The Aspen Institute, for example, and American Institutes for Research, they did a study and it showed 13% increase with academic achievement with SEL, 20% less bullying by students with disabilities, and it was like a 42% less likely they were involved with physical aggression. So I definitely like SEL and what it does. What's your take on it? You know, what?
So if I can just add a couple to that, I agree with you. There's those three buckets that you have: the interpersonal, the intra, so like how you see yourself, how you work with others, and the responsibility. That's what it is. That's what it is in the classroom. But what I think needs to be defined more is what it's not in a classroom.
Right.
It is not an added-on curriculum. It is not a separate issue. I think it's not something that people have to look to buy. I think it is a culture that you create. I think it's a dialogue that happens naturally. I think that it allows for a better student-teacher relationship. I think it allows for a better student-to-student relationship. And I think the integration has to be authentic and integrated through content that we already teach, because they have to learn how to deal with the emotions. So you have the mindset, which we've all heard. And then I think social emotional is the piece that allows the learning to happen, because it's the emotional piece.
It is, because you can have a mindset, you can have a growth mindset, good for you, but if you're not self-aware enough to understand that the emotion that comes up on you when you have something difficult and you don't know how to deal with that emotion and identify it and then process it, it doesn't make any difference if you have a growth mindset or not.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it'll stop the learning, because the emotion has to be processed before learning can happen. So the awareness and then capturing that is what has to happen. So I'm a huge proponent of understanding that it is not a separate curriculum. That's not what it is. And that's not going to make our students healthy. They have to learn how to deal and move through life in a very fluid way.
Right, just within it and how it works.
Yep.
That's how our day-to-day life is and our work, and absolutely.
Yeah,
Wow.
everything.
Which is not to say that it's evil if a curriculum is purchased.
Right. No, not
But-
at all. But I'm just saying it's not authentic, and kids can read, they can see through that. Oh,
Right.
it's like character ed in the 90s. And do you ever remember that?
Right. So it's time for SELs. Like that shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be a phrase in the classroom.
Yeah.
All the time is SEL time,
Yeah.
no matter what you're doing, because it bleeds into the academics and it's not just about the social piece of your classroom.
Absolutely. Going hand in hand. Okay, so how would you say, what's the impact of emotions on students in the classroom?
Okay, so can I show you a really ugly diagram that I've done?
Go ahead.
Really ugly diagram. All right, so I remember, like, as an educator, you know that social pieces and emotions have always affected your kids, but you didn't really maybe know why. It's just that something that you saw all the time, right? So-and-so comes in, they had a bad morning, they can't learn. So you saw it, but it wasn't until I read the work of Dr. Carolyn Leaf, she's a cognitive neuroscientist, and she breaks down neurologically what learning looks like in a brain. And when she did that, and I had to read it like 95 times to understand, and I'm still grasping it, all right?
Oh, yeah. That's how you know it's good.
Right,
That's how you know
exactly.
it's good.
So as I was starting to understand this more, I understood on a neurological level why the emotions were so impactful. So here's the breakdown. Ready? Here we go. So every blip of everything that we experience, every light, every feeling of the butt of the chair on our butt, everything is experienced in a loop form. This is a head in case you couldn't tell. It's like a 6-step, I mean, it's more than that, but okay, 6 steps. And this is what's fascinating. So we start here with the entorhinal cortex. The entorhinal cortex is in charge of space and time. So it's like navigation, and you're understanding that time is passing. Then the next place is the thalamus, which is like a satellite station, which is taking in all of the external stimuli, the lights, your temperature, how you feel, that kind of thing. We hit up to the cortex where we know everything's stored. We come back down, and here's where things get interesting. We hit the hypothalamus, which sends out hormones that help us in memory, but that means that all learning has a physical response to it, whether we're aware of it or not. Then we go down to the amygdala, which is this like an emotional library. All these different emotions are stored there, and everything that we experience, our brain gives some sort of stamp to. We like that. We didn't like that. That was good. That was bad. It gives us some kind of bias as to what we're experiencing. And then finally, the hippocampus, which is in charge of short to long-term memory. And this is what I find so incredible. It's like a sorter. It's like the Hoarder show, you know, where they go through and they're like, throw out, throw out, throw out, keep, throw out, throw out. But the hippocampus has 2 things that it's biased towards. And the first thing is repetition. So if it's seen something a bunch of times, it goes, okay, we'll keep that. Snub, throw out, throw out, throw out, throw out, stupid, dumb, dumb. The other thing, though, that it stops for is things with heavy emotion. So now we're thinking about like our classrooms and COVID and Zoom learning and all of the news and all of the dad got laid off, or we don't have any income coming in, or so-and-so's in the hospital and they're sick and we can't go see them, and cover your face, and we're going to wipe everything down. And everything we're experiencing is so laden with emotion right now that students' brains, our brains, are so busy right here. And then we come, is it the Pythagorean theorem, Kath? Is that what I was bringing? Then someone comes and goes, hey, let's learn the Pythagorean theorem. And their brains go,
it's amazing.
What? What? We're learning what? Don't you know I'm so busy with all of this going on? So once I understood this, I was like, oh, well, of course they're having trouble learning.
So once we learn the science behind the learning, we have to deal with the emotions. So you have the actual physiological neuroscience behind it. So when you start learning about brain-based learning, and then you talk about thinking, now if we don't capture and deal with emotions and learn how to process, we're either going to, it's going to either hinder our learning or it's going to help us. And so teachers have to become more educated on what it is and not see it as something that's a parent thing that has to deal with. It's a community thing. Like we all have to do it.
Absolutely.
So there, I mean, that science piece is a big chunk that we're all starting to learn more and more about. But.
Yes, I remember I was scrolling through your page and there was a post, I believe I had shared it on my Instagram, or Noelle commented on it. She was like, you know, we're twins. I was like, yes, this makes sense. At a point in time, I feel like in education, we didn't view it as one of the same. It was just separate. And we were just missing some sort of gaps. And it's just like, you know, why this, why that? And it's just like, wow.
Right. And yet we were frustrated. Well, why aren't you learning this?
Yeah.
That.
Oh, that's
And so then we started to learn things like, well, we need to have repetition, and then you'd have curriculums that were cyclical and that would cycle through, which were great. But again, if the child is burdened with emotion the 3 or 4 times you say it because they haven't processed it, they won't learn the amazing things the Pythagorean theorem will do for them. I'm a math teacher. I mean, how can you not know the exciting things of that? Anyway, that's my joke. That's what I had.
Well,
I used to teach math, so
So there you go.
that's
That's
yeah.
it. But I'm
I
like,
get it.
what?
I get
That
it.
boy that just touched your arm in the hallway is more important than what I'm
Pythagorean
doing.
theorem. That's right. It sure is.
Okay.
Anyway,
so funny.
sorry. Go
No, you're
ahead.
fine. So, in regards, you mentioned, right, math teachers rock. Thank you.
That's right.
Rock. Awesome.
We do.
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it.
I love it. It's so logical. It's not like Noelle does all the language, and I said, "Ooh, it's too subjective. I don't like reading it."
It's fantastic.
No.
Oh my goodness.
All right, sorry, we derailed.
Some
you.
people on here are readers, and I know it. I know it.
So you mentioned this mindset, right? So what is this mindset, say, that teachers should have? You know, what should be, and everybody, we all have our philosophies when it comes to teaching and how we want to address it. But what should that philosophy center around when it comes to the mindset of SEL in the classroom, or even now online learning, right?
Yeah. So I think a really important piece is to help kids become self-aware. What are you feeling right now? Okay. But then we can't just let them sit there. Oh, you had a bad morning? No, I guess we can't learn. Right?
Mhm.
Now, I'm not talking about like major trauma. Like, I'm not being insensitive. I'm just saying, for the average, I come in and I got, you know, and that's bothering me. Okay, fine. I hear you and I understand that. Now the piece is, as an adult, you become responsible for your own emotions. So what are you going to do with that emotion? I'm not saying it's not valid, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is there's a time and a place to deal with it. And there's a bigger picture for you. There's a vision for you. And if you're going to continue in education, you need to know the piece I'm going to give you today.
Yeah.
So what can we do with what you've got going on here so that you can take in what we're doing?
Which speaks to like your original question about growth mindset. I think that stops short. Like growth mindset and fixed mindset are very valid, research-based understanding of how a child views themselves as a learner. And that's important. Mm-hmm. But it stops without taking the emotional piece because, like Noelle's picture, the reality is it's going to loop around. And if we don't teach them that component and the power of the emotion, we fall short, right? So I think that that's important to not stop at growth and fixed. I think you need to look.
So there's some brain science that says that when we tell kids, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, but we don't give them tools and we don't help them understand that maybe not getting the A is doing it, right? Like when we do that, we're actually causing like cognitive confusion. And kids are like, well, they said I could do it, but I only got a C. Well, that doesn't make sense. Like there needs to be a bigger dialogue than you can do it.
Yeah. And so then if we're going to speak to what we're in right now and the uncertainty of how we're going to start next year, I think it's even more important than ever because the reality is if we start in a Zoom platform or in an online piece, we have to be even more intentional in the dialogue that we have in order to have curriculum continue because this will then become the child's new normal. So therefore they can't use it as, I'm not saying that it's not a valid excuse, but it is their reality. So then the emotion can't hinder the learning. Learning's going to we're going to have to grade them. We're going to have to move through content in order to keep our students. I mean, we can't live like that. We have to keep them current. We have to keep them growing. So embedding it in being intentional as the teacher in setting up your classroom, may it be like this? Because we don't know. We don't know how it's going to be. So we have to prepare for both of them.
Yeah, and I think the concern here is, okay, we're so used to human interaction actually we're humans and we're built for
Yeah.
this
Connection.
close developing, that connection with our students. And now here we are, we're entering the school year. It's a little uncertain. Okay,
Yeah.
we're like, okay, we're going into the school year, this online platform for the remaining school year.
Yep.
It almost feels like half of our connection is being, thrown
That's
out
right.
the window. And we have to come up with different creative ways, or we're just trying. It's like starting over again,
Yeah.
It is.
It totally is.
It is. It
That-
absolutely is.
The SEL portion is it may be a challenge, or it's going to be interesting. It's like
Yeah.
learning. It's like starting over again, when you first step into that classroom teaching. And so it's going to be an interesting school year.
Well, and then I think as an educator, one of the things that are most powerful is that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in our dialogue with them.
That too.
To say, isn't it weird? I totally miss seeing you and giving you a high five, and how weird this has got to be. So,
I don't like this either. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't do it.
Right.
Exactly. And
Right?
that definitely helps with relatability. I think sometimes even children can forget that us as adults may have feelings, or we feel things too, because we're seen as this authority figure or the
Right.
teacher, and we're feeling what you're feeling. Yeah.
Yep. None of us like this. It's a fact of life and we have to move on from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Wow.
right.
So,
We're on the parents' part. The parents' part, right? Kathy's a parent. I'm a parent. The parents' part.
It's hard being a parent.
Oh, it's so hard.
So I know right now, it's definitely a sensitive time,
It
for
is.
parents especially. And even you have educators who are parents. My goodness, I can't even pinpoint how the educators and parents are managing, but you guys are doing an awesome job because you also have students that you have to deal with, manage. You have your job as well. So in what you're seeing among your kids, for example, and with your teachers, with your students via the online platform and SEL, what are you noticing? And this is not as far as like pointing fingers at parents and doing
No.
this, but just the change.
It's all
What are you
hard.
noticing, right, within your own children and, within the learning platform with your own students?
Go ahead.
There was the bus. Kathy was like,
Yeah.
boom, there you go.
This is what she loves to talk about. Parents are her favorite topic.
Oh, I think they're all our
Yeah.
favorite topic. It's difficult. It's difficult because we as the teacher really do want what's best for kids. We do.
Absolutely.
But parents, because they are parents, I'm a parent, I know that there is a piece of parent that wants to protect, right?
Yes.
And wants to make sure no harm comes to my child. That's my job. So it's difficult because it feels like this sometimes, but it's really not. It's both people who want what's best for the child and just may differ in what that best looks like.
Yeah.
And so in this coming fall, there's going to have to be a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
A lot of dialogue. That me holding your child accountable doesn't mean I don't love them.
That's right.
And doesn't mean that I want them to do poorly, but that I know that life is moving on and that to not hold them accountable is to enable them to not grow.
Yes.
And that's not loving.
Right. So it's hard, and there has to be a lot of dialogue in those pieces. And the other reality that I think in this environment right now is parents are seeing the difficulty of teaching someone else and not giving them all the information. Teaching by nature is like they have to get messy with content in order for them to grow. So when they're getting messy with content, there's struggle. And as a parent, they see struggle as a negative because that elicits something in ourselves. So I think there could be such healthy dialogue that comes out of this, going back to that mindset, going back to SELs. I think this is a perfect storm. I think it's a great opportunity to have dialogue, to say, yeah, there is learning and finding that balance. Again, we went through a crisis right now, and so education came to a halt-ish. We wanted to be as much normal as we could for students to have that stability, but we weren't able to have any power to help them grow. So then the students were hurt by not all students, but the students were hurt by not being able to grow. But the only thing we gave them right now, this is my opinion, is that consistency. They saw our faces every day. There was things going on for us, for school and all. But the thing that I think that will happen is parents had an insight and see the struggle as a bad. And it's not always a bad. It's a process. Learning is a process, and it builds. And there's a stub your toe, and then you go back and figure it out, and you do it again. And
So Maria at Beyond Long Division is saying it's the struggle versus failure,
Yeah.
and that is, I think that for some parents, and it's not their fault. They're not an educator.
Right.
They think I'm going to show you this, and you're going to do it. Done.
Yes.
And it's not.
They forget this down at the bottom.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to show you, then you're going to manipulate, and it's going to be messy and ugly, and that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's learning.
Yeah.
Then with coaching and media, then we come out learning.
Yeah. And it takes time and repetition and all that. So it goes back to the neuroscience, then the emotions, then it's going to help or hinder. So if you put parents that took over our job because they had to, it was a hot mess.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was just really hard. There was just a couple of days where we're all like, this is not going to happen.
It's definitely the practice of you have to just kind of struggle and figure it out,
Right?
You want them to struggle a little bit, problem solve, and think.
Yes.
I think we can agree with a lot of times with this generation, it's kind of like they want us to do the thinking for them. So us in the classroom, holding them accountable, hey, asking them thinking questions, getting in their brains, not doing it for them, and that's an ongoing process. So they got to struggle. They have to struggle to figure it out, guide them, coach them to it. Okay, let's review. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean I don't love your child.
Right. Yes.
That means I do love your child, because it'd be really easy for me to say number 2 is 4.5, done. That'd be the easy way for me to do it.
Accountability and expectations are important for a student.
They are. And sometimes I feel like we need to have many discussions with parents depending on where they are in this continuum of saving my child entirely or never helping them. And depending on where they are, we have several conversations trying to get that balance understood.
And then also one last thing is that we need to know where we are in that dialogue with a parent. We might not be the one that sees that fruit in that relationship with them, because the parents are trying to navigate their own children and as they grow up. So we might just be planting those seeds all year long, all those conversations, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't make anyone bad or good. It's that whole journey and that whole learning process
and where we are in
and
that,
what we're
and
doing.
who we are in that.
Yeah. So
the other thing, sorry, she said one more thing, but I'm going to add one more thing
go
to
ahead.
that.
Yeah.
And that is as teachers, I'm just doing the teacher side, we have to be careful that we're not the person with the anxiety, not wanting the struggle, because it is easier to say, that's 4.5.
yeah.
But that we can not listen to lies in our head that say, you're not a good teacher because the kid didn't get it right away. No, you are a teacher. You're a good teacher because you need some struggle to learn. And that's okay. And I can be comfortable with that and not want to rescue them so that my anxiety reduces.
We have to be aware of our new surroundings, our new environment. We're not in the classroom right now, right?
Yeah.
And we may not be in the coming school year. So we also have to keep that in mind as we're going forward, as we're online in Zoom and Google Classroom.
Yeah.
And that's a whole lesson and journey within itself. So again, it's just you're learning too while you're doing this online learning, this online platform. It's
craziness.
Yeah, I don't like it.
But it doesn't matter, Kathy.
But it doesn't matter.
Still gonna
So
do
go
it.
back to the original thing. This SEL, it's a hot mess for all of us. We all got to do
It is.
It's
My
hard for
goodness.
everybody, right?
It
So-
is. I feel like
that's
my
funny.
students, I feel like when kids are more vulnerable, normal, just kind of randomly talking around or talking at, how they're feeling or what's going on at home, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, this is what we have to get done, but I get it. I get it. I understand. And you're just trying to either just encourage them, hey, have a conversation with your mom. Have you talked to your mom about those things? And
Yep.
again, that's just a whole another aspect of it. So
It is. I wrote that down actually, that as parents, we're so busy right now, just finishing up the school year, and I'm still doing my job, and we have to like put the phone down, close the computer, take the earbuds out, and say, you have my undivided attention. Tell me everything you're thinking. Because although we're thinking about, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to get this done, our job as parents is to help them process. That's part of why we gave birth to them, right? Like, you should be telling me things. Communication is key, as always.
Right. So in regards to parents, your role is so powerful. I mean, I'm not a parent. I'm a parent yet. In the event that in this lifetime that I get that honor, awesome. But I think that's so amazing to have that ability to impact your own kid on a higher level. I think that's awesome. And I say this because children, they mirror everything you as a parent do and say. Honestly, they mirror everything. Like you are indeed the center, the nucleus of social and emotional learning. Like, your impact essentially it supersedes a teacher, a counselor, social workers, etc. And just as a matter of fact, overall makes our teachers' jobs easier. Parents, you have a dual role in raising a self-aware, respectful child who knows how to manage his or her emotions, responsible decisions, resolves conflicts non-violently. Just kids in general, they have a way of saying things, quoting their parents with so much confidence and conviction, right? And they do, right? It doesn't matter how correct, how incorrect it is. Their confidence and conviction that they get from knowing that this is what mommy said or this is what daddy said, and they stand by it. They will stand by it, and they'll probably argue you down because it's what mommy told me or it's what daddy told me. And that's just powerful within itself. That says a lot for you as a parent, the type of just influence that you have over your kid. Like, that's your power, and that's amazing.
Yeah. I never thought of it like that. I've probably just been too busy to think of that big of a thought. But you're totally right, because we see it too.
Right.
They speak and they are pretty sure that they are correct, even when we disagree.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So parents, things that you can do to support SEL at this time. So number one that I had wrote down was taking care of yourself, even if you feel it may be the last thing you can do right now. And I feel that in order to cultivate social emotional learning, the skills with putting those skills into young people, you have to take care of your own mental, social, and emotional awareness. Children, your kids, they're sensitive to your stress, right?
They're watching you. Yeah.
They're watching, and some kids are more sensitive than others, and they can just feel, they just know when something is wrong with mom. They just know when something is wrong with dad, and you obviously may not be able to approach them and have a conversation with them in the way that you might your girlfriend or the neighbor down the street, okay? But they feel those things, and that, has an impact on them. I also wrote down establishing a routine, getting into the routine. Yeah, I remember seeing pictures on social media float around. There was this family. She had got her students dressed up like they were going to school. They were up. They were in uniform at the table just to establish that routine. Not saying that you have to do it. You can establish your own routine, but they're definitely important for young children and children who experience some sort of trauma or some major disruption in their life.
Structure.
The uncertainty of COVID right now has us all experiencing some form of trauma or lack thereof, some shape or form. So creating a daily routine, a daily to-do, some form of intentional time and structure for social and emotional learning. So maybe you want to call it just like a round table, right? Where you create a space in your home where you guys just talk about how you're feeling. You know, maybe something happened that bothered you and you want to create that safe, comfortable space like, hey, okay, during this round table, this is what I want to talk about. This is how I'm feeling, right? And at the same time, you as a parent, you know, you're practicing brushing up on your listening skills. You know, you really get to hear a perspective maybe that you never heard before or thought about just because your child is having some form of, you know, reflection, just giving you that insight and just making you think. And lastly, helping children express and name emotions, because that can go hand in hand with establishing those routines. It helps them understand what it is that they're feeling. And children in general, they struggle to identify their feelings. And if you can ask them to express it through drawing or some form of facial expression or maybe through some sort of movement in their own body.
Play-Doh. Yep.
Right. Older students, you know, like a journal prop such as, you know, if you were a weather reporter and my feelings were the weather, it would be blank today. And so with that practice, they may be able to describe a cloudy, gloomy day, but they might not have the emotional vocabulary to specify their feelings. But that gives them practice to putting a name towards their feelings instead of maybe you might have a toddler that's screaming or a 6-year-old that just wants to randomly scream because you're just frustrated, but they don't know what they're feeling. It's just like, ugh. Right? You're giving them that practice and opportunity to put a feeling to a name. So,
yeah. I'll just add something. Most of my children are older. I teach in the older grades too. A lot of times you have to be doing things with your older kids. So when like you have to, you're walking, you're driving in the car, you're consistent and persistent with the older kids because a lot of them will tell you everything's okay.
Oh yeah.
And then they'll get sideways, but you just have to. You have to do, for me, it's a lot of drippings through the course of the day, a lot of touch points through the course of the day in order to get the older kids in my home and in my classrooms to talk to me. Beginning of the class, middle of the class, end of the class. Are you sure? Anything else? Da-da-da. Because, yeah.
I was going to say in that structure thing that as much as possible you would join them. So if you say, okay, we're going to read for a half hour, well, then you're not on YouTube while your kids are reading for a half hour. Like whatever you deem, they're going to look to you to see the value of that activity. Yeah. And if you don't deem that activity as valuable, why would they?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely would say with the older kids, you have to, I mean, I don't want to say necessarily be nosy, but you have to really almost invade just a little bit because sometimes they won't tell you. They'll just keep it closed up and they'll just, you know, act like nothing is bothering them. So you have to.
Until they're in crisis.
And then you know only when it's more in crisis, I would agree. But I mean, we're just in a very sensitive time right now. But I think as parents and as teachers have come together in a very unique way and may need to continue to do this. This will allow, I think, a great opportunity for just very healthy dialogue about what a healthy culture in a classroom looks like. Embedding the mindset, the social, emotional, and content, the whole learner. And that's more of a buzzword in education is the whole learner. But more than ever, people are aware of it. Educators are, I would say, more aware of it than ever before. That it is.
And she says, be extra. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, Maria.
That's good.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Wow. Well, that was good.
Yeah. A lot of thinking.
Great. All right. So where can we find Get Up and Teach? Where can we find you guys?
You going to talk about this?
No. This is you.
This is me? You can find Get Up and Teach on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Then you can also find us at www.getupandteach.com. Our special for today, in case you're interested, is that our read alouds, which combine math content and social emotional learning standards and ELA standards. You have a code for 50, FORYOU, 54U, and you can get 50% off of any of those texts that you would like on our website today.
And the good thing is they're all projectable. So if we go back to learning, they're for 3rd and 4th grade.
Awesome.
You can you can already have lessons available.
Nice.
Laying over the summer.
Yeah, man, it's exciting stuff.
Yes, I like stuff already done. Perfect. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
How about you, Miss Mapp?
Well, I appreciate everyone that came and tuned in. You can find Excel Choice Education at www.excelchoiceedu.com. If you need assistance structuring organized learning schedule for your child, or if you know anyone that can benefit from that, you can click the link in my bio on Instagram to schedule your free consultation, and I do look forward to speaking with you. Anyone that you may refer to me, I do provide a $20 referral fee as a thank you for sending them my way, so I do appreciate you. All right, we don't have any more comments or questions. Do you have any questions or last thoughts? No?
We're good. Anybody out there?
Yeah, super fun. It was
Okay.
our first time.
Yeah, this is a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Asia.
for inviting us.
This is
No
great.
problem. You guys definitely brought value. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I thought it was
This
very
is a blast.
informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Great.
We'll chat
Take
soon.
care.
All right.
right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.